Just so the audience, the people who are viewing know, Playter, your father has a funeral home in town. This is Roadhouse and Rose, right?
That's right.
But your family goes back quite a way in Newmarket, doesn't it?
Yes, family's been here for about 200 years.
200 years in Newmarket?
In Newmarket, or just on the outskirts of Newmarket.
Really? The Playters, is it?
Right.
Has it always been Playter, or was it?
Right. Nope, always been the same name.
Where did they come from then?
So, they came up from the United States. One branch came up as Quakers and settled in just outside of town in about 1802, and the others, another branch came up from Toronto just shortly after that, 1820s.
Really?
So.
1802 they've been here,
right?
That long?
Yes.
And of course they would have farmed in those days. Is the farm still?
Yeah, the farm's still there. It's in a community called Pine Orchard, just on the 5th concession or Warden Avenue, just outside of town.
Which is just east of Newmarket.
Off of Vivian Road.
So the Playters were Quakers then?
One branch was, yeah.
One branch was.
Another branch were Church of England, and they were more into merchant business and things like that, and they were in town.
So there were two branches of the Playters. One were the farm, one were the sort of like the country and the city type of thing, the town. Well, in 1802 there wouldn't have been anything here, really.
Not a whole lot. No, starting towards 1810, 1820, you start to get more and more stores on the main street and stuff like that, and then you start to get a little bit of a build-up, and they were involved in that, and running a stagecoach line up from Toronto to Newmarket.
Well, they did?
Yeah, the first stagecoach line to Newmarket was done by George Playter in about 1820.
And these were, of course, for freight as well. That was one of the main things, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah,
passengers?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sold his business to William Weller, and sort of took it from there, but it was a Playter to begin with.
Was it? So the Playters have a real connection to Newmarket then?
Right, Newmarket and Hall Landing area.
Well, would you have any idea why the Quakers came here? I know 1802 would be, a few years after the American Revolution.
Yeah, a lot of them, they were making some attractive offers, like to give land and things like that, and religious toleration. So there were a lot of different reasons why the Quakers would come up, and there was, let's say, land grants, and they could get a sizable, like a 200-acre, for example, grant. And
a grant?
Right.
And they could pursue their religious beliefs as well without interference.
Right, yeah, they had an opportunity to sort of set up their own communities kind of thing and base it on their own lifestyles and beliefs.
Now there's a Quaker meeting house which is here, which is
that's
well over 100 years old on Yonge Street.
Yeah, about 1810. It's that's called the Yonge Street Meeting, and then the Pine Orchard had their own meeting house as well.
Oh, so there'd be two. This wasn't the one that they came all the way from Pine Orchard to?
No. This was separate. This was called the Yonge Street, and it was more the group of Quakers who came here with Timothy Rogers. So they're related. They came up at the same time, but they're two different branches, really.
So there's more than just the Playters who are...
Oh, yeah, there's Rogers and Doanes. There's Lundys. There's a lot of old names there. Randalls.
Now, would the Quaker meeting place in Pine Orchard still be there now?
There is a building still there. I'm not exactly sure how far that dates back. At one time there was two. There was a bit of a split in the sect, and then they had two meeting houses at one time. I think one is still there. I think it's the newer one.
Now, usually, when you have historians on, you look at some wizened old person who's been around for a long time,
Right.
Right? And you're fairly young, so you're still, I think, in university, in college?
Just part-time, yeah. I went to university for 4 years, now I'm just going part-time.
How did you get involved in this historical aspect of Newmarket? Was it connected because of the family?
Sort of, yeah. My dad's always been very interested in history, and so as I was growing up, I was always into it, and he had, photos and things like that, and went to shows, and so I sort of inherited from him and just kind of, continued it kind of thing.
Yes, because you first came to light here with, well, at least with myself, from these articles that were published in the Town Crier.
Right.
This is one here. This happens to be February 25th, 1998. But I understand you were doing articles in the Crier before this.
Yeah, sort of on, like for a while it's on a monthly basis. Now it's maybe one every couple of months or something. Before that it was only when they had some sort of special or something. But yeah, off and on, like, for the last 3 years, about that. Yeah,
because I'm kind of interested in history. I like to take a look at the old town and background and so on. And I've been interested in reading these articles. And one of the things that caught my eye, and then we were showing me some of the articles that you'd written back in '95. I didn't realize that you'd written those.
Okay. Yeah, so they just sort of popped in every now and then. There wasn't a very regular routine to them or anything. It's sort sort of once every couple months or whenever they needed something.
Now, I notice in here, though, when I see these things, it says photos are courtesy of the Wes Playter collection.
Yeah,
Glenn, that's your father.
That's my father, yeah. He has a very extensive postcard collection, which I use, and I have my own postcards as well, and we kind of share and maintain the same collection.
Postcards?
So, postcards and pictures, anything to do with old Newmarket.
With Newmarket?
Right.
Where would you get these postcards?
Anywhere, really. They pop up anywhere, really. You can go to shows and things like that, and people collect them, and you talk to different collectors and see what they have, and you can trade them. A lot of postcards end up being in people's basements and things like that, or
no kidding. I've got postcards at home. I didn't know that they were.
Right, yeah, a lot of people don't really know what they have, and they start going through things, and then you never know where they're going to pop up, really.
Now, this picture here where we're talking before we went on camera, this photograph here that was in the paper.
Right.
This is from a...
Yeah, it's a postcard. It's a 1891 postcard which was just blown up, and it was a very detailed actual photo card, not a reproduction. So that's one of the reasons it was able to blow up so clear.
And these would be, what, itinerant photographers that would go around and make these?
Yep, they'd be commissioned, or they'd take a couple pictures of people's houses or whatever and then sell them to the owner. So.
And how did you get interested in it? Was through your father, the collection?
The postcards? Yeah, we kind of went to shows together kind of thing, and now we both pick up things here and there.
Now, do you have things more than just postcards and photographs?
We pretty much collect anything that has to do with Newmarket, so we can get old photographs, furniture that's stamped with Newmarket manufacturer's labels, things like that. Anything in Newmarket, really. My dad collects old bottles and things like that. Crocs have Newmarket labels.
Anything that's got Newmarket labels?
Anything Newmarket, basically. Yeah.
You've got some. You brought along some photo of the postcards.
Right.
Could we take a look at some of those? I mean,
sure.
These are the. And this is just your collection.
That's right.
And your father has one as well.
Oh, actually, we share. It's the same.
You share.
Same
You don't
collection,
jealously guard yours. And
no, we share.
And this is the Christian church in Newmarket, the one with the big spire,
right,
which you see on the top of the main street.
Right.
Which when was that built?
1874.
Really?
Right.
And so someone would take pictures of this, and then on the back of the postcards, but there's actual writing on these.
Right. Yeah. A lot of them have never been used, but yeah, some of them have the postmark penciled and stamped.
Mrs. Florence Horn, Aurelia. These were done 18. Here's one here, 1907.
Right. You can date them by the cancellation mark if there's no date right on the card.
And so these would be people, and they're postmarked in Newmarket as well.
Right.
This is really interesting. But I was intrigued with the messages on the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting reading. You can get an idea of a little bit of social history.
And one of them, here's one here, 32 Hesley Street, Nottingham, England, but was never sent.
Okay.
No message. Well, yes, it must have been because.
Yeah, I guess they just sent.
They were just sending a picture
the card.
of the,
yeah. Sometimes
this is our
that.
church
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to, but most of these seem to be of churches. This is the old the St. Andrew's Church,
right,
which is at the bottom of Main Street.
Right.
And what are some of the other ones that are in here? Is the St. John's Church in here as well?
Yes, the original one. Churches are a pretty popular subject of photographers. They'd take a lot of pictures, but that's the Methodist Church there, which is now the Trinity United.
Well, that looks, I mean, there's all photographs of churches. I mean, when if they took any pictures of anything else, or any landscapes or anything like this?
Yeah, there's different, like you get pictures of Fairy Lake, and you get pictures of factories and houses and things like that. All different, anything really.
And who would take these photographs? These are, well, here's one here. Take a look at this one. This is the old St. John's Church, which is still here.
That's St. Paul's.
St. Paul's,
right,
yes.
on Church Street.
On Church Street. And when was that built? 1884. 1884. But it looks almost the same today.
Yeah, the basic structure is the same. They made little alterations, and the inside has undergone some more extensive renovations, but the outside is basically intact. The tower is a little shorter, but.
And there was quite a controversy about close it down for a while.
Yeah, there was some talk about replacing it, and I think now that they've opted for renovating it and building a new church beside it.
Now this one here is the foundation, laying the foundation stone of St. Paul's Church, 1884. There's a picture there.
Right.
I've seen that photograph before, up at the keg.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the photographs there were taken from these postcards and blown up.
In the Keg restaurant in Newmarket.
Right.
Yeah, because the whole wall is filled with.
Yeah, there's a
and
lot.
Those are your photographs?
A lot of them are. Some of them they've got
the
from
Playter
different sources.
collection is again.
Right. Yeah. They had a firm decorate it for them, and the firm used a lot of different sources, and one of them was these postcards.
And is there shows? Like, can people go around?
There's annual conventions and things like that.
For postcard collectors.
Mm-hmm. And you know, once you sort of get a reputation as being interested in a certain subject, you know, people will sort of look for you, and then you look for other people, and you trade and things like that.
It's sort of like hockey cards. And
sure.
That kind of
yeah,
same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that there was quite an extensive collection of people who would collect postcards. But these are all just Newmarket, aren't they?
Right.
So you've been looking around in these various shows, but just specifically.
Right. We might get an odd Sharon or Hall Landing or something that's close by, but yeah, almost entirely Newmarket.
I can't believe that the old meeting house, and there's the Pickering College. There's a picture of Pickering. There's not even any trees there at that time. But most of it are buildings, but there's very few landscape things here as well. But the letters on the back are interesting to read.
Yes, yeah, it's almost.
There was one we were reading about. What are you doing? It was dated, I think, May the 10th, 1909, and it was. What are you doing on the May the 24th?
Right.
Which would be the holiday.
The holiday, right.
And they were going to go to Niagara Falls in the morning or something on a train. I guess it would be an excursion train.
Right. Yeah, trolley train.
And be back at night. And they signed at the Newmarket Shack.
Yeah, you get a lot of little antics like that, and kind of very humorous.
Now, is there, if you're collecting postcards and they have these shows, as you say, are there some postcards like stamp collectors, like there's a very expensive one everyone's looking for?
Yeah, like there's reproduction cards, which are sort of mass-produced, and there's actual photo cards, which is an actual photo basically, and they are worth a lot more than the reproduction cards. And then you sometimes get old photo cards, which are added in with color, or they'll color the trees in the back with watercolor.
So the idea of collecting the postcard is not so much for the comments or the message, but for the photograph on the front.
That's mainly, yeah.
Is that the idea?
It's good to have the social history is interesting as well, but primarily, like, my interest is in the photographs and getting sort of documentation of what buildings used to look like or what other buildings used to be there.
And so that's the idea of collecting the postcards. How far do they go back, postcards like this?
You start seeing a lot of postcards towards the end of the 19th century, and then really popular during like the 1910s and things like that, World War I era.
Because some of the postcards you've got there are dated 1884 because of this church. We know that the church was foundations late in 1884, but would some go before that?
Not very likely, no. There wasn't. You don't see a lot of photographs before that, like being mass-produced and things like that. The technology wasn't really there.
But there would be postcards, though, but without a photograph on the front.
Sure, yeah, and there could be, watercolors or sketches or anything like that.
Courier and Ives, that series, that kind of thing.
Right, but you really see them. You really see them getting really popular, sort of after 1900, after the turn of the century. You see more and more frequency.
So do people collect the other ones as well?
I think so. Yeah, I think anything's pretty much collectible, really.
So when is the next big show going to be on where people would?
The postcard convention for the Toronto Postcard Club is usually every February. So.
Is it a big event? Is it?
It is fairly large. Yeah, they have it down at the Sheridan Hotel or something, and you get dealers from all over Canada and the States, and people from Britain.
They do.
Yeah, it's an annual show, but yeah, they usually have quite a big showing.
And are people make a living doing this? I guess.
Oh yeah,
they do.
You get dealers.
Dealers.
Or they do that in stamps or.
And what would some of those postcards cost? I mean,
anywhere from for a reproduction card, maybe $5–10, and for a good photo card, depending on how rare it is, you could go right up $100, $200, depending on how rare it is, and how much you want it, kind of thing, right?
So you could trade your St. Paul's Church for a Methodist or
sure, yeah. With another Newmarket collector, or you could trade something that you don't collect that someone else does for something that you do and they don't, kind of thing.
So these are mainly just historical type
That's right.
things. But people will be collecting current postcards as well?
Yeah, I don't know if they're collected sort of the same way. Or this is mainly because of the the age of them that we're interested in, but we don't have too many new ones really.
I wonder, are postcards still a big thing today? I wonder.
I don't know.
The email and
yeah,
telephones is kind of going out.
A thing of the past kind of thing, yeah.
Sometimes some of those postcards they would be sending us something saying we're coming up on the weekend.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be that fast.
That's right. And you get a lot of addresses where they just put the person's name and then write town, and they knew where to take it, kind of thing. They didn't have to have a street address or no postal codes or anything. Just R.H. Smith town, and they know to.
Yeah, Playter, Newmarket.
Right.
They would know.
That's right.
Oh yeah, there they are.
That's right. They know which street.
When did you get interested in doing this? Through your father, or?
Pretty much, yeah. He's been collecting for quite a while, and I've been sort of interested in it as well for maybe about 5 or 6 years.
So he must have quite an extensive collection of these.
We have a few hundred, maybe 200 or 300.
And the uniqueness of them is the photographs themselves.
Right.
But as I say, I'm wondering why there's so many churches and
churches
official buildings, post offices, and things like that.
Yeah, it depends. Like the attractive buildings were always a very popular thing to photograph, and often you get people, photographers taking pictures of people's houses and then selling it to the owner, kind of thing. And so you get a lot of the more spectacular buildings in town. You don't get a lot of the more plainer ones, unless it's usually part of a bigger picture.
So it would have to be a stately type of building.
Usually, yeah, and that is all related to if the owner had a lot of money and had a nice house, kind of thing, and they want to get postcards of them, kind of thing. So it was like a business, you know what I mean? The photographer would take pictures of houses of people who had money, kind of thing. There's a lot of.
Someone told me that our other historian in town, Terry Carter,
right,
who's written quite a few things about the town, the Newmarket, the heart of the York region, and so on, that the Fairy Lake, there are I think postcards of Fairy Lake as well.
Right.
Someone took postcards.
Yeah, it's quite a attractive spot. You see a lot of postcards of Fairy Lake and the surrounding area.
Which was a lot bigger than it is now.
Yes, yeah.
But according to him, the story is that this itinerant photographer, whoever he was, took the pictures of this mill pond and named it Fairy Lake.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah, it's interesting. You've heard it like mill pond, and but yeah, you slowly see that through the pictures, it being referred to as Fairy Lake, and it's quite possible that it was just a designation that someone gave it. Maybe mill pond was too boring or something.
Too boring, yeah, like mill pond, Newmarket, Fairy Lake, what sounds like. Of course, the other story was that somebody had seen them there.
Okay, right.
Fairies.
Right.
If you go there at 6 o'clock in the morning, you might be able to see one.
Right. Yeah.
I think there was a story published some time ago, Terry was telling me that in the paper there was someone that said that they saw something. And for the next 2 or 3 weeks, people were down there every morning looking to see.
Oh, really?
But it wasn't really true at all. It was just
okay.
The same as the haunted house that's down that way as well, where I think that there's an old hotel on the main street there. Someone says it's haunted.
Oh, really? Yeah, you get a lot of stories like that, and sort of legends or whatever that surround different buildings.
Old houses have to have ghosts. So
right.
They're not
right.
interesting enough. Now, you got this. Do you have other photographs as well besides just
you get some
a collection of postcards?
Sometimes you get large ones, like all different sizes, kind of thing. Sometimes you get sort of the panographic pictures, which are very long, and you get that of like sort of a school picture of all the students, or maybe some sort of assembly on someone's lawn or something like that, or military photographs.
Have you cataloged these? Are you cataloging these so that you don't lose them?
Yeah, we sort of have an index of which ones we have, and sometimes you might find a better quality one of the same one, you replace it, and
I noticed
kind of keep an inventory.
That the binder has those little plastic things which are just the size of postcards, so they must have been made specifically for that.
They're
right?
especially for postcards, right?
You buy them at the, I guess for the show.
Right.
And what are some of the where do you do your research for these things? You do more than just collect photographs or postcards, right, because those buildings you've done some research on, and you go around and look at them and say, what do you do there? How do you do that?
You can get anything like municipal tax records, looking at old newspapers, like first-hand publications, things like that came out during the time, bulletins and storybooks and articles and things like that came out actually at the time, primary sources.
Because this is interesting here. This was the beginning of the article here this year, Main Street, the historical heart of Newmarket. Now that's just, as you say, from a postcard.
Right.
But you've written a whole article.
Right.
Just about the postcard. So you must have had to done some research.
Yeah, you can sort of build around the photograph and talk about the time it came out. So.
And so where is this block where is that block on the main street? Where would that be?
That's on the east side of Main Street between Botsford and Timothy.
So this store here, Julius, looks like Maurer. That would be the Cassidy's flower shop
Right,
now,
yeah,
right?
right in the corner there.
And down here's this is where the Granada restaurant is.
That's right.
And the TD Bank, and then down at the corner, right where the TD Bank is.
Right.
Isn't that something? And look at all the people out here with these things on the street here. Look at groceries and vegetables right in boxes on the street.
Yeah, you see a lot of that with the merchandise right out on the sidewalk.
But there's others in here. You've got the history of our town, and there was another one here, the camp number 23, the Canadian Army Training Camp. Now that wouldn't be a postcard, would it?
That was probably a photograph. Right.
Photograph. And you've written an article about that too, or gave some information to the townsite. Where was this World War II training camp? We've talked about that on other shows.
It was right up like off of Strigley Street there. There's a lot of photographs and things like that, and some of the barracks that they built are actually houses that are still there. They built houses out of them.
They have. Mm-hmm. and this was also a training ground, I think, in the First World War as well, wasn't it, in Newmarket?
That's right, yeah. There was a battalion from Newmarket.
And why did you get so interested in all this stuff?
I just always found that kind of thing interesting, and enjoyed looking at photos and reading old newspapers, and I took history at school as well, so it ties in there.
Oh, you did?
Right.
Now, have you put something together about what the Newmarket town is and the old town and so on?
Most things I've done right now are very specific. I haven't done like any sort of general history. I prefer to focus in on very specific items or people and do a lot more detail.
And did you write the articles, or is this Lou, I think he wrote, but you've written some articles, haven't you?
Yes, yeah.
And you've brought some along here, copies of things. The unique blend of old and new. Now, this is the Whitfield building. I remember we had Terry Carter and that other fellow on, I think, the historian from LACAC.
Right, Wayne Morgan?
Wayne Morgan, yeah. Now, he spoke about the Whitfield building. That's the one right on the corner of Main Street.
It's on the northwest corner of Botsford and Main.
Botsford and Main. And this is the one he was talking about that has a bit of Paris, France.
Yeah, it's Second Empire, which refers to the Second Empire of Napoleon II. So that's it's unique in Newmarket, that Second Empire style.
Now this store here has some connection to the Playter family, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was built by Walter Playter's father-in-law, Joseph Whitfield, and it was built for his law offices, and then he built a store on the bottom for his son-in-law, who was Walter Playter, who had a dry goods store in there, about 1880.
Now, as we speak, the current shop in there is, I think, Artistic Revival.
That's right.
And we spoke to Claire Bolton Boyer and her husband John, who's an artist, and then when they were not renovating the place, but there was more or less cleaning it up, they found something from was it your father had a Playter, or grandfather had a store there for a while?
Yeah, Walter Playter. He's sort of a distant cousin.
And they have that plaque on the wall.
That's right.
But also something interesting, workmen in those days would sign their name to the work before they covered it up.
Mm-hmm.
And when
wallpapers.
Yeah, and when they took some wallpaper off, they found this sort of almost a plaque,
right,
which is about 5 feet high, and here are all the workmen's names on them, dates and everything.
Yep, they'd sign their work, sort of thing.
Yeah, and what they have now, what the Boyers, the Bolton Boyers have done, is they've covered that over, put a plexiglass, so it becomes now part of a display.
Right.
So if you go into the store, you can actually see the signatures.
Right.
And Terry Carter was telling us that along the edge of that place, that store, one of the first casualties of the Second World War, I think his name is Pfeiffer, Bill Pfeiffer, when he was probably 10 or 12, he and a friend carved their initials into about the bricks, about 10 bricks.
Right, yes, I've heard that.
And those initials are still there. You can still see them. So that's the Whitfield building. That was, and then this is the Roadhouse and Rose, which is the family business, right? Which has been there since how long?
About the 1840s.
And this is on the main street as well.
That's right.
But it didn't always look like it does today. This is...
No, it was renovated during the 1920s, and then there was a fire in about 1956, and it was renovated after that.
And so there has always been a funeral home at
That's
that
right.
location.
Yes, the Millard Funeral Home was there before that. So,
and then here we have a fire changed wooden face of Main Street forever. And of course, I guess that was the biggest thing in those days, was the fact that
with wooden buildings on the main street, if one building caught fire, usually a whole block
thing
would
was
go.
gone,
Right?
Including all of the clothes and the material and so on.
That's right.
And this was when was that big fire?
1861.
And just cleaned the whole block out.
Right.
There was an interesting article you had written in here about the, I'm trying to think of it, where was it here? Oh, the hotel. Now that's interesting. This is the King George Hotel, which is still there on the main street.
That's right.
And in 1910, it was purchased by a group of temperance workers.
Right. Yeah, led by Dr. Wesley, who was a very popular doctor in town who was played a leading role in the Prohibition movement.
And so this was against liquor.
That's right.
Liquor sales. So they bought the store and then the hotel rather.
Right.
And then promptly stopped selling liquor. Canceled the liquor license. You know, I guess that was one way of. But of course, another one to spring up across the street, I guess, as well.
Right. Well, yeah, it was enforced in town for a while, but that was one of the beginning movements that got it going, kind of thing.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break and come back. And when we do, I want to talk about this walking tour of historical Newmarket that we talked about before.
Right.
And that you brought up today. So don't go away. We'll be right back with Wes Playter and historical old downtown Newmarket.
Hi, I'm Dawn Collins. Join us each week here on Rogers Community TV for a new program called The Running Shoe, where we'll feature fitness tips, celebrity interviews, and special guests, all leading up to the annual Persicini Run Walkathon. That's The Running Shoe, Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Watch for MP-MPP reports. Having a voice in the political realm is more important today than ever. Hear what your MP or MPP has to say, here on Rogers Community Television.
Cable in the classroom, tears down walls, opens minds.
Can television be good for kids 6 and under?
I'm so excited.
Now, from YTV, the network that knows kids, there's a whole new specialty channel that thinks about preschoolers all the time.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Safe, friendly, commercial-free TV from early mornings to bedtime. Familiar friends and new shows from home and around the world.
I mean, how else can a little kid travel?
If you're not receiving Treehouse TV today, call your local cable company.
The program is Community Report, and I'm your host, John Dowson. We have some very interesting and informative guests lined up for our show. You never know who or what you'll see. So tune in every Tuesday at 9 p.m. right here on Rogers Community TV.
Would you like to feel relaxed, calm, and have enough energy and more to do what you want to do in a day? Tune in on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. for Traditions of Yoga, yesterday and today.
We're back. It's John Dowson, and we're talking with Wesley Playter. Wesley, isn't it? Right.
That's right.
Wesley. And we're talking about the town of Newmarket, the walking tour that Wesley Playter has designed for people to take a walking tour and take a look at some of these buildings we were talking about. Wesley, is that part of the family? There was a Wesley in the Playter family, you were saying.
Actually, named after an uncle, but it doesn't really go back that far, my own name.
There's not many people in Newmarket, I guess, that could trace their roots back to 1802.
Not too many, no, I don't think. It's,
but there are some, I'm sure, besides the, the Playter family. Now this is the town of Newmarket walking tour of the historical district, which is is, could you tell us a little bit about where this historical district, if you call it, or Old Town, if you want?
Right, pretty much this refers to the main street and sort of the side streets, maybe from the railway tracks or Prospect Street over to Church Street in the west, and from Davis Drive to Ferry Lake.
Now, there's a lot of interesting things that towns and cities have done lately, you know, to rejuvenate their history, such as Montreal that has Old Town,
right.
You know, where they brought back the cobblestone streets and that type of thing. Quebec City, in Toronto, of course, has got some areas of town as well. And the Niagara-on-the-Lake, because this isn't quite Niagara-on-the-Lake, but still, there's a lot of history going back to 1802. Right. Niagara-on-the-Lake was, 1798, 1796. So this is only like 4 or 5 years later. The Newmarket was...
The buildings that are still here today start a little later, but a lot of them date back pretty far.
So people in Newmarket, and some of the new people who've moved here, don't have to go all the way down to Toronto or someplace to
right.
take a look at the history of the not only Newmarket, but of the province as well.
That's right.
Because there was a lot of... because this was the start of the 1837 rebellion, which we've talked about before, wasn't it? Right here in Newmarket.
There was a part of it got started here.
A hotbed of revolution in 1837. Right. Here and Sharon as well.
That's right, yeah, around here.
And they do a reenactment at Lloydtown every December of this battle that took place when Newmarket marched on Toronto, and
right.
I think about 20 shots were fired, and that was the end of the thing. Now this is historic downtown, so this is the part encompassing near Main Street then, right?
Right.
Now, if someone, and where can you get this little guide from? Where
you can get them at the museum, from the town offices, the library, the Historical Society.
So if someone wanted to take a tour, some of the viewers looking now might want to take a tour of the old town, they could go and get one of these maps.
Right.
And then where would you suggest they start? Is there a starting point on it?
Yeah, it has a starting point on it, just beside Ferry Lake.
Beside where?
Ferry Lake.
Ferry Lake.
Right.
Okay. Let me see if we can open it up here. So, all right. So you would start down here. Yeah, where's Ferry Lake? Where is that?
Right in the right-hand side there.
Oh, I see, over here.
And the path is marked out in white.
So the first thing, you've got them numbered, I see. One is the St. Andrew's Church.
Right.
Which was built in 1875.
Right.
And that's right at the bottom of, is that right in the, where is that located? At the bottom of
right in front of, right actually, right there.
Right on the Main Street?
That's right at the foot of Main Street.
And what is this other building, 2? Main Street's, you've got Main Street South, number 2.
It just, those numbers refer to pictures on the other side. And that's a general view of Main Street, looking north.
Oh, so there's oh, I see. So number 1, the St. Andrew's Church. So if someone went there, they could take a look. And then on the back of the brochure, it has the history of the actual building.
Right, a short history and then a before and after photograph.
Oh, before and after. Oh, I see. And number 2 is Main Street. Here's a view of Main Street looking north, which is about, what, 1910, does it say?
Right, yes.
And there again is another hotel. A lot of hotels on the Main Street.
Yeah, there were quite a few.
This is what it looks like today.
Right.
Or close enough to.
Right, yeah, early 1990s.
So someone would start down at the bottom of Main Street, and sort of walk north.
Right.
And what would they see as they walk north there?
They walk by the King George Hotel, the Sovereign Bank Building, a few different churches.
Where's the Sovereign Bank Building? Where's that?
It's right at the northwest corner of Oxford and Main Street.
Oh, that was a bank?
Right.
This is right across the street from the Whitfield Building.
Yeah, right where our National Trust is today.
Oh, so there is still a financial institution operating in that area. And then they go north to the Roadhouse and Rose, which was built in 1891.
The original building was, right.
And at the very top of the hill, the Christian Church. Now that's currently the
Baptist Church, right, 1874.
And at one time, as Terry Carter was saying, there was supposed to be a clock.
That's right.
In the tower, which has never been
done.
Never been done. The town had even put aside, I think, $32 to put this clock in, and I don't know what they were doing with $32, but there's no clock in there.
That's right.
Now that is one of the highest points in downtown, isn't it? Or in Newmarket itself.
Pretty much, yeah. It's right on the top of the escarpment, on top of the hill, and it's a very tall building. I think about 132 feet. So.
But these buildings, as you say, that go back to the 1880s and some 1900s, are actually still businesses today.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of them are still here and some performing their original function.
And the main street itself is making a sort of more of a comeback now on a boutique type of idea. Now, how would this differ than what people locally here refer to as Unionville? You know, what's the difference between Newmarket and Unionville?
I think Newmarket, Unionville has a lot of sort of specialty shops, and Newmarket might be heading that direction a little bit, but I think it's a little more useful for everybody in general kind of thing. Like they still have a lot of stores that are general use kind of thing.
But the Unionville, is it older than Newmarket?
They date from about the same area, both sort of loyalist towns and Quaker towns, and Unionville's probably about the same age, I think.
Yes, because I've heard comments about people who are business people and some people who live in the area,
right, that
they would hope that the town, I'm talking about Newmarket, would retain that style.
Right.
Yeah, because I think the library which is down there, the old library, the Newmarket Library, which was rebuilt, was a modernist.
Right.
It kind of looks a little out of place in amongst the older buildings.
Right.
That are now trying to be restored.
That's right.
Now, some of the other interesting things we've talked about in the past, but again, are the old town hall.
Right. Yep. 1884 was on the Market Square.
Could you tell us a little history of that, of what that is? What number would that be? Number 6.
Number 6, yeah. Just on the south side of Botsford Street in the old Market Square there. It was there was a building there beforehand. This one was built in 1884, and the bell tower on it was original in 1884, and then eventually it was torn down and it was replaced as part of the Newmarket Centennial Project in 1980. And it was redesigned by George Loosby to suit the original and to tie in with the old building.
Oh, it was?
Right.
And it's still in use, isn't it, for
different municipal things, theatrical performances and things like that.
But at one time, didn't people have wasn't there a farmer's market there?
Right, yes, that's how it got started, Market Square term.
Well, that's called Market Square?
That's right.
So where the old town hall is now?
Right, yeah, the streets that border it is all referred to as Market Square.
So they wouldn't bring vegetables and animals right inside the town hall? They'd be...
No, that sort of predates that building, and before it was sort of more of a market style.
But to some of the people who have told us that there was, I think Terry Carter was telling me that there was still a market garden fair or market fair there up until into the 50s and 60s.
I think so, yeah, it's very possible.
Because you wouldn't remember that.
No.
So now that you've got to the top of the main street and you see the Christian church, you start going down. The hill goes down on the other side now. And you'd be then seeing this strange-looking building which seems to be sitting up on 6 feet of earth somewhere.
Right.
Called the Robertson House.
Right.
I don't know how that happened, that it was sitting there, but it's still there. Now, who was Robertson, and what's the history of that?
Robertson was a lawyer in town at the end of the 19th century, and he built that house and rebuilt it in 1896 to the size it is today. And he was a lawyer, and he also served as a council and then mayor from 1896 to 1898.
Oh, really? And so that was his home?
That's right.
And then on down further, there's this radial arch. Well, now that's a sort of, I've seen that.
Right.
To me, it just looked like a strange piece of concrete over the river there. I always wondered what it was. And I've since seen a photograph. You showed me a photograph where it was actually earthen banked.
Right.
And that was for the old
bridge,
radial or electric railroad that came up from Toronto.
Railway.
And that was to go across the then Holland River, which was probably a little bigger then at that time.
Right.
And you can still see the arch there.
That's right.
Now, Loosby Memorial Works, we did a show on that at one time.
Okay.
And that is one of the oldest buildings, I think, on the main street. It still looks the same.
That's right, and it's one of the ones that performs the same function.
And still a monumental work, or a monument work.
Right.
And it has the old sort of false front. And
sort of the boomtown front, yeah.
Now, you've also got something along the back here. You can go down Raglan Street, I see here, Jackson Tenement. Oh, what's that? That's over on Church Street.
A tenement house built by Erastus Jackson. And it would just be like rooms to rent out.
A tenement house? What's that?
Just a house you could rent out rooms to people, boarders and things like that. People would stay there. Kind of like a small hotel.
And that's still there, is it?
Right, yeah, it's been changed quite a bit, but the house is still there.
And if you go on down Church Street, I see we have the Walter Playter house.
Right.
Who is Walter Playter?
Walter Playter's the one who had the dry goods store on Main Street who we talked about.
Oh, and his house is still there.
That's right. So that's his house, and the other building was where he had his business.
So this is really interesting. Who came up with this idea of this walk? Was this yours?
Well, we had George Lusby had designed one quite a few years previous, and the change with this one was the use of before and after photographs, and it's in color. So.
Well, and I see here the Robert Simpson house. Now this is the original Robert Simpson from the Robert Simpson department store.
He later went to Toronto and got his business going.
For those of us who remember that Robert Simpson stores no longer exist, but there was a rival to Eaton's for a long time.
Right.
And now I noticed when you walk down there, you see buildings with a plaque on them and a name and a date. What is that all about?
They're just heritage plaques that tell you the first owner and the date of construction and the owner's occupation.
And so do they have denote anything? Are they registered with the province or anything?
It's just done through the town. It's just the town keeps an inventory of old houses, and if owners want to, they can get these plaques.
Oh, they can?
Right.
And the name on the plaques then would be the original owner. Is that the idea? Or is it someone that had it last?
No, but the original owner.
Now, what about the house on... I'm thinking of that one on Botsford Street, and I don't know if you've got it marked there, and he has frescoes and so on.
Yeah, that's Liberty Hall. It's not specifically marked on this map, although it's one of the sites you can see on it.
And that's an interesting building, because it looks like something from the antebellum pre-Civil War Southern.
Right. Yeah, it's a very unique style.
And this is the... that's the walking tour.
That's right.
Now, is this updated from time to time?
This was put out a couple years ago. It hasn't been updated since. It's sort of geared to last for a while. We might put out a new one in a couple years or something like that if it's necessary.
And who publishes this?
It was done by the town, and it was produced by JB Printing.
So they're still here now. These
That's right. Yeah, you can get it at the library, or
you can get it at the library or the museum, which is on the main
or from the town
office.
office.
That's an interesting building too. The museum, which is in the old registry office.
That's right.
Right on the top, right across the street from the Baptist church.
Right.
Now, how did you these articles in the paper here? What sort of topics do you write about?
Pretty much anything. Usually, I try to. I've had a few different themes, like I used to do them all on medical history on different doctors and things like that. Sometimes you'll see themes.
Well, that'd be kind of gruesome, wouldn't it? You know, medical.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I took some medical history at school, so it was kind of tied in there. Sometimes, like if there's a current issue, like say St. Paul's Church, an article on the church would be appropriate, or you know, if something's being altered, or you know, like the registry office, the museum, for example.
When would you get how would you go about doing your research?
Same thing, basically looking at old newspaper articles, different sources, journal articles, photographs, textuals, etc.
And who's this other fellow here that you're working with, or do you just give him the information? This is through Piacenti?
A lot of these ones, some of these ones in here aren't actually mine, but I put in the photographs.
And he has an article about the sinking of the Titanic at a local connection.
Right.
What was that about?
I'm not exactly sure, really, to tell you the truth. As I say, I didn't do all the articles in there. I only did some of them, but I know there was some sort of connection there he was writing about.
Oh, I see. This was the doctor and his wife were coming from United Kingdom or in England in those days, and they couldn't get on the Titanic.
Okay.
They missed it, so
they were lucky.
So, yeah, like I guess for them it was. Yeah, luckily they didn't. And here's one here of the 1919 factory explosion that claimed 5 lives.
Right.
What factory was that?
That was at the Keynes Woodenware, which eventually became Dixon Pencil.
Where was that located?
Right on the north side of Davis Drive, just beside Bayview.
Is that building still there now?
No, there's a medical center there. The Dixon Medical Center is on that site now.
Oh, so, that was a wood, what is it, Kane's Woodwork Factory?
That's right. They made woodenware, chairs, any kind of wooden buckets, anything like that.
And the other article here was the canal system that was never completed. There's a photograph as well here. Is this a part of your collection? With the dredge?
Yeah, we do have a photo like that. That's one of the boats on the canal when they were building it.
And this canal was supposed to connect Newmarket to
Lake Simcoe.
Lake Simcoe.
And then so you could get into the Trent Severn system from there.
And this is what you see when you go downtown Newmarket now. These walled.
Yeah. There's two sets of locks in Newmarket and one in Hall Landing.
And there was even a turning base.
Right
where
beside the tannery there, right at Davis Drive.
And that never came about, I guess.
No, it was never completed. It was canceled in 1911.
Because we were on before with yourself and Ralph Nagel talking about the canal and when it started. Ralph has a lot of photographs as well.
Yes, he does.
Does he have historical photographs, or are they more?
I don't know how many originals he has, or he just has reproductions, but I know he has quite a few anyway.
And the Grand Trunk wreck in 1907. There's another photograph there. Now that was apparently Office Specialty Building, which is right on Timothy Street.
That's right. It stretched between Timothy and Gorham.
and these were all your articles that you put in the in the paper here. And do they tie in at all with the walk that you talked about?
Some of the buildings in the articles are covered in the walk or shown. Yeah, related.
The 1867, the Harrison House. Where was that?
That's the Grey Goat pub on Main Street.
The Grey Goat pub.
That's right.
Was a house.
Right.
Well, I guess they all were homes at one time. But who was Henry Harrison?
Just a local gentleman kind of thing. It was one of the more spectacular houses in town.
And right next door is a place called the Calico Goose.
Right, and that's another old house that was built by an architect, William Buddy.
And the Thomas Blizzard House, which is still on the Main Street then.
Right, that's an antique shop there too. That's one of the concrete block houses.
Oh, that's the one with the concrete block.
Right.
That's one of the earliest exhibits of what
use the concrete as for the whole exterior.
And Dr. Whitfield, this is a relative?
Very distant, yeah. The Playters are related to the Whitfields, and that's a local doctor who was involved in politics and served as sheriff.
Sheriff?
Right, sheriff of the county.
Not sheriff like in the American type of...
No, more of a sort of political representation kind of thing for a county or a region.
Now, would he be one of these, the Quaker group as well?
The Whitfields are split too. I think his branch is the non-Quaker branch. They were the Anglican branch that were in town, although there were Whitfields who were Quakers as well.
And he's the one that had he grew up, it says, in a farm here, a Maple Grove,
right,
which would be, again, east of town, isn't it?
That's Pine Orchard. East Maple Grove is a little different area.
And he was educated in Newmarket. You've done another one here, Joseph Wesley. Now, this is another doctor. This was
he lived on Main Street.
This is your namesake, Wesley?
No, just a coincidence.
And he lived on the Main Street, and he lived right until in 1951.
Right.
Was he one of the original doctors that were in this?
He was one of the early doctors. He was a little later, but he was one of the sort of more modern doctors, and he had his office right in his house.
Is this the one who lived on Botsford Street?
No, he lived on Main Street, 160 Main Street, right across from the funeral home.
Now, there's the Liberty Hall, I think you said, one of those streets, that had a doctor in it.
Yeah, Caldwell, who built it.
And he had his office in there?
I believe so, yeah.
And at one time, it was the only hospital in town. I think it had 3 beds.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's Dr. Dales and Dr. Hutt had a house on Main Street, just south of the Christian Church, which served as the first hospital.
And this is the picture here of the I don't know if, well, it was in the Town Crier last year of the cottage hospital.
Right.
What's the cottage hospital?
It's just a term they gave to the original York County Hospital, which was built around 1930, just because it was small and it was kind of in cottage country almost, because it was a very it wasn't a whole lot out there on Davis Drive, and it was a very small hospital, just kind of small and cozy, and they gave it that name.
Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still there. There's all additions are built onto it, but the original unit is still there as the administrative section.
So you drive along Davis Drive and you look in, and that sort of administration building, that's where the original hospital was.
That's right.
Everything else is going up around it.
Right.
And that's the cottage hospital. And we talked about the liquor sale in the hotel. Whatever happened about that? Was there a temperance movement in
there was for a
Newmarket?
while, yeah, and then it was canceled for a while, yeah, and you know, effects of it even stretched into fairly recently. You couldn't get liquor in town. So.
You couldn't?
No.
So this prohibition type of thing lasted a long time in Newmarket, did it?
Yes, it did. And then after a while, it was, I think, the municipality's decision to keep it enforced.
Because I've heard from old-time residents that the only place you could go to get a drink was you had to drive to Bradford. Bradford did quite well, I guess, from the local farmers and business people. And the Friday night or Saturday night drive up to Bradford.
Right.
And that was it. I guess there'd be nothing in Aurora either as well.
No, I think Aurora was dry for quite a while as well.
So there was a hotbed of temperance here.
Right.
And this is the picture you showed me of the radial arch, which is this arch was built when?
1906.
And what was the reason for building like that?
Well, they had to maintain a certain elevation for the railway. And at the same time, they had to span the Holland River, so they built an arch over it, and then they built a trestle bridge over the arch.
But what's so unique about it? I mean,
it was it was a concrete structure, and they're starting to get more and more into concrete. And in terms of engineering, just the shape of it and how it spanned, the arch itself is very innovative.
And it was poured, I guess, at the time.
Right.
Of some kind. And then it was banked up at the end. And this railroad ran from Toronto to
Jackson's Point.
What was it for? For passengers or?
Mostly, yeah. It's just a passenger line. Went up Yonge Street.
And the old tannery building, which is still down on Main Street now, where the town offices are, this goes back quite a way as well.
Yeah, about 1902, around there.
And is this is this on your tour?
Yes. No, there's a picture of it on the tour, but it's sort of a jog off the main route.
Now you and your family live downtown now, don't you?
Fairly close, yes.
So you live right in the historic place. Every time you walk to work or go over to the shop or the stores and so on, you're walking through all this history down there.
Right.
And is the home your parents live in? Is that one of the historic homes?
It's one of the older ones. It's about 1914.
And what have they done? A lot of people down there started to take these old homes and brought them up to standard, renovated them?
Yeah, renovate them, sort of put them back into a more authentic appearance kind of thing.
And some of them even have the old Victorian-style doors.
Right. Yeah, you see a lot of French doors and things like that.
And also the, what do you call it, the screen doors as well are that way as well?
Right, yeah, and you see a lot of reproductions now that you can get that look pretty authentic.
And in addition to the downtown old homes, but the streets too go back some time as well.
Yeah, most of the streets on Main Street were put in like late 19th century. The street that we're on was put in about 1912. You see a lot of new subdivisions coming in around the Main Street.
I know there's a lot of people in Newmarket, maybe the people who will be watching the show, they drive up the 404, move into their home. Right. Of course, you get back at 7:30 at night, you're baffed. You're not going to, you're just washed out. You're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And then you get up in the morning and drive back down to Toronto or the 400, whichever way you happen to be going.
Right.
And a lot of people don't even get to know that there is a downtown Newmarket.
Right. Yeah, because it's not really you can get pretty much around it if you're going to work or anything else. So.
And you would need to go there because there's the mall and so on. So if you go the downtown, as you go along Davis Drive, which runs east and west, and you come to Main Street, and there's a nice little sign there that the town has put up.
Yeah, they identified saying
downtown.
Right.
And so if you go down into the Main Street, and in that area there, this is the part we're talking about.
Right.
Between Fairy Lake, where the fireworks is on the 24th of May now. Right. No, it used to be, but isn't anymore.
Right.
And from there up the Main Street.
Go till Davis Drive or so. Yeah.
So Davis Drive would be considered the old downtown, and this has also been designated in the official plan as a historic part of Newmarket.
Having historic interest.
And this is where you would go to see the old buildings and take a walk.
That's right. That's where the majority of the built architecture from the late 19th century.
And I have a friend of mine who moved out. He's been living here for 2 years. He didn't even know where this was.
Really?
No. So I told him to take a walk down there, and he was just enchanted with the whole idea, the fact that there was a place there that you could go and see and visit without having to drive all the way to Toronto.
Right.
And it's worthwhile. So viewers, I would, if you're looking for something to do and you want to have a nice Sunday walk or a Saturday, do a little shopping, go down to the Main Street, pick up one of Wes's walking tours, and maybe you might get a video or a audio tape, and they can play it and listen to some of the things along the way. So thanks very much for coming by, Wes. I want to appreciate you taking the time.